We can begin, I think people have already begun doing that, but we can begin with introducing everyone in the chat and with your name, where you are at the moment, if what degree of the track of the program you're interested in, things like that. In the session today, we'd like to talk about the program itself, especially the MCCN track, and mainly answer the questions you all might have about the application, classes, and anything else about the program itself. So we'll keep our introductions a little short. Feel free to start typing your questions in the chat box. And once we get to the Q&A part of the session, you can unmute yourself and turn your video on to ask it. And if not, one of us can ask it for you. That's fine too. Moving on to some quick introductions. I'm Kathy. I'm a current student and a content marketing and strategy professional. I'm also the outreach coordinator at ComLead. We have with us Heather, Assistant Director of Academic Services, Liao, our Head of Outreach, Isabel, who is a recent MCCN graduate, and Sarah, who is a current student in the MCCN track. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves now. Heather, would you like to go?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and apologies in advance if you hear banging. My roof is being replaced above my head at the moment. I am the Assistant Director of Academic Services for the graduate programs in the Department of Communication. And that means I help students navigate the program from admissions all the way through to graduation, making sure they meet degree requirements, university and graduate school policies, and then connecting students to resources during their time in the program. I've worked with this program for over 10 years now, and my expertise is in student development administration and student affairs work. I'm also the person who answers the comlead@uw.edu email. So if you have any questions after this session or at any time about the program, and reach out, this is the face that's answering your emails to that inbox. Great to see everyone here today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thanks, Heather.
Hey, Heather. So I can go next. I am Liao Zhao, the Head of Outreach at Communication Leadership Graduate Program. So in my role, I provide support for students, recruitment activities, career services, alumni engagement, and event facilitations. If you hear the background noise, that's from my 5-month-old baby. And I want to let you know that at ComLead, we're planning a number of signature events that will also not only open to current students, but also to open to prospective students like you. So one of them is called Connects, which is happening in this March. And this year's our theme is Reconnects Community, Creativity, and Leadership in a Transformed World. So I'm going to put the registration link in the chat box, and you're welcome to join us to meet industry experts and community leaders. Yeah, thank you.
I'll go next. So hi, everyone. I'm really happy to see you guys. And I'm Isabel Wan, and then I'm ComLead Cohort 19er. So I graduated last December, and then now I'm in the middle of the job hunt. Then later I can share like how ComLead has helped me reach out to our alumni and then build that connections. And it's really happy that you guys are here. Welcome to ComLead.
All right, I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm also super happy to be here for this event and to be able to hopefully answer your questions. My name is Sarah. I am in ComLead in the cohort 20, so I'm still relatively new. This is my second quarter. I am in the MCCN track, and obviously I'm a student ambassador as well, which is why I'm here. And then professionally, I am a transcription specialist at Microsoft. And I'll be looking forward to speaking with all of you and hopefully answering some questions you might have about the program or, you know, anything related to classes or anything like that. Welcome again.
Thank you so much. Before we get to the Q&A session, I think I'd like Isabel and Sarah to go ahead and talk a little bit about their experience as MCCN students. Just any part of your experience that you think would benefit prospective applicants or people who are interested in the program, they would benefit from knowing. Please go ahead and talk about that.
Oh, do you want to go first, Sarah? Or
sure, I can go ahead. Okay. I can talk about, for example, the fact that there are, from what I know, there are 2 required classes that I I attended one last quarter and one this quarter, which are held by a professor called Anita Crofts, and those are by far my favorite classes. Those are classes that would really push you to experiment with different things that you haven't touched yet. Different forms of, you can be making a video, or it just touches on the pillars of the program. So leadership, community, yeah, so anyway, they're just great classes. There's also the program for mentoring, where you will be paired with a mentor, and then you can ask a lot of questions and kind of have meetings with them. They might guide you, professionally, or even through the Comlead program. That's a program that I've benefited from as well. And then there are various events. There are always events going on, and that way you might discover, things that might interest you. I thought I was a person that was not interested in technology, and just recently through these classes discovered that actually I do like learning about artificial intelligence and the way that it relates to human beings, which is also the aspect that the program is taking when it comes to technology, is just how does that affect human beings. And I just, these events might promote, a lot of interesting topics that you might not have been exposed to. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So I want to share a bit about my background. I didn't mention that earlier. So I was born here in the States, but I'm raised in Taiwan, and I came to the United States because of the Comlead program. So I came to Seattle in September 2019. Before I came here, my background comes from journalism. So I've been working in the news industry for around 2+ years. And then I was at the point of like, I really want to come to the States and then to advance my communication skills, or like in a more hard skills way. Then I found Comlead through a classmate back in Taiwan. Like she came to UW to study linguistics, and then I just like one day went to UW website and then found communication, and then found communication leadership program. So when I go through our program page, like the more I look at it, the more I like it. So I'm also in the MCCN track, which stands for Master of Communication in Communities and Networks. So I think throughout the 15 months with Comlead, transitioning from in-person classes to virtual classes, actually everything went pretty smooth. I think Comlead, everyone at Comlead really helps us along the way, like for in-class, how to build that in-class experience into the virtual world. So within Comlead and then in MCCN track specifically, if you choose Comlead, you can actually take classes. Even though you're in MCCN track, you can still take a few credits out of the digital media track, but also you can take classes of track neutral, which I believe either Heather or Kitty or Leah would touch on later. And I think within the class experiences, it's really hands-on and industrial focused. Like if you want to explore into different field, like maybe user experience, user design, or I even took a class called Communication for Advocacy. Like you really get to work with clients in the real world to build your portfolio. If you're looking for a transition in the career, or you're looking to experience like you're in the area that you're interested in exploring. So I think what Comlead helps me is to really build the portfolio either related to marketing communications or content marketing. That's the part that I really like about Comlead. And as Sarah mentioned, like I'm also the student ambassador for the communication leadership program. So I think within Comlead, it's really like how you want to build your personal Comlead experience. Like we have a lot of resources, mentorships, programs. So I think it really depends on what you want, and then we're all here to help you with that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, because I'm in the middle of the job hunt, I can feel like, because I came to the United States in 2019, so I don't really have like networks before that. So I felt like ComLead really helps me to build that relationships with alumni, not just maybe for graduated the past few years, but way back into 2000 or 2001. Just like if you make the ask, we'll try our best to help you make that happen. I think that's a very long answer to Kathy's question.
Thank you so much. I think you covered a little bit of the first question that we already have, but since you were already talking, would you like to add anything to what you already said? After that, Sarah can go, and then I can go to answer, like talk about each of our experiences related to the question.
Why is it,
Yeah, I'll just read the question out. What made you decide that you wanted to study ComLead in the first place? Did you have a specific career goal or problem you wanted to solve that the program answered for you?
So I think the reason why I wanted to study ComLead in the first place is because, so one thing is that I've always wanted to study in the States. It's just like, I don't know what to study or what I'm looking for. So after working in the news industry, I feel like the technology or like, more of an advanced communications trends is something that I'm lacking of, because like you think the news is actually changing every day. It is, but like the work itself is actually very repetitive. So I think with ComLead, when I look at the program courses, it really touched on a lot of different areas, either in marketing or user research or user experience or content marketing. It touches on everything, a lot of things that I'm really interested in learning. And I also look at like past alumni, they have their works featured on the ComLead website. So the more I look at it, the more I feel like if I join ComLead, I can have a chance or the opportunity to really pick the brain on the instructors that we have with ComLead. So I think that's like the main reason why I chose ComLead in the first place. And then with career goals, let me look at the question again. Yeah, so I think for career goals, because I'm currently looking for a job in marketing or communications related roles, but with like journalism background, I don't really have any hands-on experience. But I think because of ComLead, we have a COVID-19 consultancy task force that helps small business or nonprofit organizations that really needs experts on what the problem that they're facing to help them bridge that gap. So with that ComLead consultancy task force, I got a chance to really work with mission-driven companies or organizations, and then to really provide guidance. So I think that helps me build up that portfolio to pursue a marketing communications career right now. Because I just had an interview today, and then the recruiter actually clicked on my resume, my portfolio, and asked me questions of a class project I work for, the content marketing class. That's really cool. So that's my answer to the question.
Thank you. I can go next. So I forgot to tell a little bit about my background as well, but I also graduated in journalism in my undergrad. But then I went on, and life took over, and I actually didn't really work in journalism. I was an English teacher, English as a second language. And then I was an international flight attendant. I was a freelance translator. So I've done a lot of things that are somewhat related to communications, but I didn't have hands-on experience, as Isabel said, with journalism. And then when I applied to ComLead, I was actually in my first year of being a stay-at-home mom. I had a little daughter, and that was great, but I was kind of wanting to re-enter the job market. But I found it a bit tricky because I didn't know where to begin, what to search for. I knew that I wanted to go back to communications, but I just felt maybe a little bit unprepared. So when I found ComLead, I started doing a lot of research and looking at the courses that they were offering. I also felt like I was just in love with every course that I was looking at. And then when I found that there are 2 tracks, and I saw that there's one that's, focused on storytelling, it was kind of a non-brainer for me, because that's what drew me to journalism to begin with, is the ability to tell stories. So I was just sold on the idea of ComLead. And another thing that I really like is, as Isabel mentioned, the ability to create a portfolio. So because I felt like I didn't have necessarily a lot of experience when I wanted to re-enter the job market, I figured this would be a good way to leverage what I was doing in class, to build that portfolio through class projects. And I also, when I was doing research, I also saw that there are a lot of classes that will offer projects with actual real clients. And I felt like that was super valuable experience for me to be able to bring to my job search. So that's what drew me to ComLead.
Awesome. I would also like to share, so especially also because I am in the digital media track, which is different, like the other one from the communities and networks one. So my background is basically in mass media and advertising, like not so much journalism. And I started working in content, like I started creating blog content and stuff professionally. And in one of my roles, my previous role actually is when I started exploring content marketing a little more, and content strategy and content marketing. And then I was really interested in those areas. But like Isabel and Sarah mentioned, I didn't feel confident in the skills I was developing through self-learning, because I was trying to learn all of that while applying it at my job. And I felt like I needed a technical degree, like a degree or technical skill building to be able to do that. And which is when I discovered ComLead, when I was looking for a program like that. And the one thing that really stood out to me about it was that it's a professional program. There aren't that many communications programs that are professional. Most of those are research based. So, but I wanted a professional program because I wanted to get back to the work environment as quickly as possible, probably even while I was studying, which is what I ended up doing anyway. Which is why ComLead really stood out to me, and that's kind of the gap it helped me fill, because now I graduate this March, and I'm looking for content marketing and strategy related roles. And I feel like the classes that, even like Sarah mentioned while I was doing my research, the classes that ComLead offered, especially in the digital media track, they kind of fill that gap for me, where I was able to build the skills I wanted to be able to get into this career. So yeah. The next question is from Jessica. It's about an application. Heather, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, and thank you for asking us, Jessica, because there's a quirk of the UW Graduate School's online application, which is the same application for every graduate program at the university. So Jessica's asking about the February 1st versus the March 31st deadline. So if you started your application before February 1st, I didn't even know it did this, but I can see why it would do that. The system only allows for one application deadline at a time. So we had it set to February 1st until that passed, and I finished checking in all the applications, sent out reminders to all of our recommenders that were late and things like that. And last week we switched it over to the March 31st deadline. So it sounds like that's not showing up retroactively for you on the application, but you can ignore that. That's saying it's late. It's not late. It's just that we can only have one active application deadline in the system at a time. So you can absolutely, still use the same application. You don't need to worry about that. There's been no changes based on the different application deadlines to the contents of the application. So just be sure you submit by whichever deadline you are wanting to be considered under.
Thank you. The next question is a very interesting one. How do you articulate the difference between the two tracks, which is digital media and communities and networks? I can try and do that. And if Heather or Leah or anyone would want to add anything to that, we can just, you can feel free to do that. I think in terms of the basic differences, I feel like the digital media, the classes that are offered in the digital media track focus more on technologies, whether they're current or emergent. So for example, careers or classes and careers related to, say, user experience, so UI or UX related classes are offered in the digital media track. There is more multimedia production related classes that people take, whether it's video storytelling, audio storytelling, which is podcast related classes and everything. And we also have a lot of data and analytics angle of marketing classes that are offered as part of the digital media track. So I feel like that would basically be marketing plus technology would kind of be the expertise areas for people taking the digital media track. And for the communities and networks, there's a lot more focus on like building community, growing networks, and crafting organizational identity. The electives that are offered kind of focus more on leadership, advocacy, organizational storytelling, and communication strategies with ethics, with like focus on ethics. If anyone wants to add anything to that, feel free.
That was a great overview. That what Kathy said. Yeah, I would say, yeah, the MCDM really is focusing on those kind of content creation skills, whether it's UX or storytelling, as Kathy discussed. And then the MCCN is less focused on the technology, but more the communities. So you might be using technology to do some of that community work or advocacy work, but it's really looking at the relationships as the core of those classes.
That's so helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing to that, I know no one has asked this yet, but just to know more is that there's a lot of classes that are offered individually in each of these tracks, but then there's also lots of classes that are track neutral, which you basically take with everyone. So people from both tracks will take those classes if they want to. And then you also have the chance to take up to 10 credits in the other track. So I'm an MCDM student, but I've taken 10 credits, like basically 2 classes in the MCCN track as well, because I was really attracted to those. So you do have that kind of flexibility within the program, even after you kind of decide what track you want to pick. So there's always that.
And I'll just jump in on another comment here. If you are trying to decide between the 2 tracks and you can't decide if you want to apply to digital media or communities and networks, I always recommend that students go straight to the courses. So look at what you would take in each one. I mean, like Kathy said, there's some track neutral, but then there's classes that are designated an MCDM elective or an MCCN elective if you go to our classes page, which I just put in the chat there. And just read through this quarter and past quarters and future quarters. You can use the filters to change what quarter you're looking at, and keep a tally of which classes you're really excited to take and which degree they fall in. And whichever one has more classes you want to take, that's the degree you should apply to. And so that's often the best way to decide.
The next question is about scholarship opportunities.
I'll unmute myself while I'm looking for the link here really quick. So we have a fees and financing page on our website, which I will pop in right now. Then this has our current year's tuition and fee rates, so you can see the full breakdown of the cost for the program, but it also has a number of resources for funding the program. And so if you're looking for specifically applicable to international students, there are, it's on here, there's the SHE International Graduate Student Loan that is offered through International Student Services. There's a link on that page to that information. So that's a pretty unique option. Normally, because of the F1 visa requirements, and you have to show that you have, financial ability to pay for a year of the program and tuition and living expenses and all of that, there tend to not be as many opportunities for kind of an entering student to have funding, but that is an exception to that SHE International Graduate Student Loan. And then we have the partner program and the consultancy, which have opportunities to get funding, get scholarships, or hourly pay on campus that will be open to international students. And I know Isabel participated in the consultancy, and you can talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, the next question is about partner program and other funding opportunities. So I think, Isabel, if you'd like to talk about your consultancy experience, I can then add on with some information about the partner program.
So as I mentioned earlier, we have the COVID-19 Consultancy Task Force. So I volunteered to, so there's a Google form that you can fill out that the skills or the areas that you're interested in offer the help with. So we have a director, Susan, she's the director. So she and the team will see your expertise and then your interests, and then look at the organizations on the list to match you with them. So I got matched with a Seattle-based Congolese Integration Network NGO. It's like helping Congolese immigrants to the greater Seattle area to build their social media presence. So I actually look at their Instagram and Facebook, and then to think of the strategies like, oh, what's the story that they're trying to tell their community members? And then how can we provide a better ways for them to tell that story, or to have like a social media makeover. So it's like really to see how you would like to help them, or what are the needs that they have that you can put emphasis on. And I recently got matched with another organization, which is still in progress. I don't know a lot of details yet, but I'd say if you're willing to help, there's definitely plenty of chances to do so. And then partner programs, I don't have experience yet, but I can share that something I forgot to say is that when I first joined ComLead in September 2019, so I found we have this bi-weekly newsletter, job newsletter. So in that newsletter, I actually found a advocacy local journalism API focused. It's called the International Examiner. So they focus on the Taiwanese community, which is part of the communities that they focus on is Taiwanese in the Seattle area. So I applied, and then I got like a little bit of stipend because it's journalism. We all know that. But it was like an 8 months long training program. And then I really learned a lot throughout this fellowship. If it's not for ComLead sharing that information in the newsletter, I wouldn't find out this amazing experience.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Isabel. I can just jump in and to talk a little bit more about partner program that we are currently have. So partner program is like our complete graduate program, collaborate with organizations from different industries. Like it could be some small nonprofits or government agencies, small business, or like Fortune 500 companies. So they put their projects into our class, into our students' field, and our students could apply their new skills to the real world scenarios. So that is really a great way, and also for students to get some stipends. So in the past, we offer students scholarship, but now we're just transferring to a new system that students will get paid hourly. So that is one thing. And as Isabel mentioned, that we share our partner programs information via our weekly jobs email. So in addition to that, in our jobs email, we also share out of our programs job opportunities, including like internship positions, part-time and full-time positions, and any students could apply for that. And when we share these opportunities, one thing that we also make sure that is we have a connection in that company or organization. So we're just not put you in a position to apply hundreds of jobs by yourself, but we are support you to make connections with the recruiter or with our alumni who are already working that organizations. So that's another opportunity. And I know that for international students, I want to let you know that we have many opportunities that face to all our students, not just domestic students. So for example, like Kathy is an international student from India, and she's currently our student outreach coordinator, and she works up to 19 hours per week. And we also have some other positions like event coordinator, and her name is Evelyn Ko, and she is also an international student from Taiwan. And we have some other roles like alumni and engagement coordinator. So some of them are graduating this spring, and some of them are graduating this fall. So that means we'll have new positions open to new cohorts like you. Yeah.
Yeah, and to touch on that, part of that question was, when are you able to start applying for these positions? So the partner program positions, those are usually finalized, and a call is sent out about 4 or 5 weeks before the quarter begins. So for those coming in the fall, that would be in late August or early September is when those would be advertised for fall quarter. And in general, it would be a good time to start applying for the on-campus positions as well. It's usually August or September that we'll be advertising for fall positions. As far as other funding opportunities, a lot of those deadlines are far in advance. So if you're applying for like federal financial aid, that priority deadline has already passed, but you can still apply. And if you're going to do that, I recommend doing so as soon as possible. Submitting your FAFSA to apply for that. Says January 15th is UW's priority deadline. The graduate funding, it's not as big of a concern having missed the priority deadline, because basically at the graduate level, it's just student loans. So they don't run out of grant funding for graduate students. But get that in soon, because it takes 8 to 12 weeks to get a response for that. So it's a really long process applying for that federal financial aid. So I would say check out that page, the fees and financing page, because it has information about all those different types, and then you can see what the different deadlines are for each of those.
Awesome. The next question is about attending classes. So right now, all the classes are being offered online. So we're all taking classes on Zoom right now. I think Heather can speak a little more to what it would look like starting at least this fall and possibly even for 2022. I don't know if she'd have all the answers for it, but she can definitely give more clarity.
Yes, so ComLead is at its core designed as an in-person program. So pre-pandemic, we didn't have any online classes or hybrid classes. Everything was in person on the UW Seattle campus. The classes are all in the evenings and on weekends to accommodate working professionals so that you can still work, Monday through Friday during the day, and then take classes in the evenings and on weekends. They have been online since the last week of winter quarter 2020, and the decisions have been made by the university each quarter as to whether we'll be online or not, given the public health concerns. So spring quarter is also going to be remote, but we don't know yet past that, because it'll all depend on what the vaccination status is and basically public safety. I mean, that's the #1 concern. So once everything is safe to be back in person, that is absolutely our plan, to be back on campus with all our classes on campus. But we won't know what that situation will be until much closer to the start of fall quarter.
And just the second part of the question is, like you mentioned, AJ, you're an international student. I feel like at least last fall, which was cohort 20, which is Sarah's cohort, I think what definitely happened is there was a lot of flexibility in terms of how you were able to take the classes, because obviously whatever visa related issues you might face, most people would face those anyway. So I think there were a lot of people who were able to either defer by a quarter or defer by a year. And there were also people who were able to take classes from outside the country as well. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in there, depending on what the university decision is for how the quarter would begin. I think there is a lot of space for being able to offer you the best possible scenario if you want to start right away. The next question, I think I can talk a little bit to that, because I am already looking for jobs after I graduate too. So the next question is about how the job hunting experience is going for people currently in the middle or kind of like during the pandemic. I definitely say it is. I mean, I don't know how to compare it with what students in the previous years have experienced, but based on my conversations with them, I feel like the stress level or the struggle level is kind of similar, because that is the nature of a job search process anyway. So I think that hasn't changed too much, but I feel like the one advantage that I definitely see in terms of, for example, the jobs I've applied by myself or through like a portal or something, and comparing that to the jobs I'm able to apply through a referral from someone at ComLead. For example, recently I was able to kind of get referred for a job by an alumni member who we don't even know each other, but because we're in the same professional group, she was able to kind of verify my background and refer me for a job. And I kind of was able to kind of get at least an interview call for it, versus the 20 others that I've applied by myself and not heard back about. So I feel like the one thing that Leah mentioned earlier is the referral aspect. And because the community is so very close knit, it definitely makes a difference in terms of people being able to refer you based on your background and your job preferences. So that, from my experience, that has definitely been helpful. Would anyone else like to talk about their job search experience?
I can just add, oh, go ahead, Isabel.
Oh, I was just gonna mention it's very frustrating. But there are definitely chances out there. So I want to mention one thing is like ComLead, we have this event called First Fridays. So it's like every the first Friday of every month, we will have like a networking event. So for example, like this month, we actually have a Connect with Recruiter first Friday. So in that event, we have recruiters from Microsoft, Square, Slalom, a lot of companies. So there are resources that we can leverage within ComLead or even above and beyond ComLead, like what Kiati mentioned earlier. I personally also reach out to Liao and to ask for like, I have some target companies that I'm interested in, and then do we have alumni working in those companies? And then is it possible I can reach out to them? That kind of resources is all there. And then I mean, if you're in the middle of a job search, don't give up. Sarah?
Yes, I can definitely agree with that. Don't give up. And there are a lot of other resources, like for example, we have Facebook groups, and it's very casual, but people are always posting, job positions are open there in their own companies or their friends' companies. So it's definitely out there. And yeah, I've attended a few First Fridays as well, and I think that those are really helpful. And then just taking advantage of your networks. I feel like I got a little bit lucky because I was planning on starting my job search in January, and then I didn't even get to the job search part, and this current job kind of just happened. So I skipped I just skipped it, the whole job search. So I mean, I'm glad, I'm grateful for that. But I know that the program has a lot of things in place to help people with job search. I did get, for example, you can get your resume critiqued for free, through the program. And I think that her name is Lynn Juve, but there's a person, that gives great advice on job search. She's basically a job search coach, and you can get a lot of advice from her also, as part of the company program. And I know that she's helped me a lot, and I've looked at her YouTube videos and her Instagram videos a lot and tried to apply these things. So there's a ton of resources, and hopefully that helps.
Thank you. And Sarah, I think the next question also, you would be the best person to answer. So the question is from Max, if any of you are working full-time while doing the program, how would you describe your experience balancing the two?
Yes, I can definitely talk about that. So my last quarter, I was not working, and I was taking 3 classes, and now I'm working full-time, and I scaled back to 1 class. It is doable, but it's you will not have your evenings for you anymore. Definitely, it's a grad school, so you do have to study, but it's manageable. I want to say for 1 class currently, I believe that my class is worth 5 credits, and it's a class that meets research requirements, which means it involves a certain amount of research. So approximately, I would like to say that I have to study about, maybe 4 or 5 hours per week. You don't really calculate the hours. You can just go through the materials and do what you have to do, but it's manageable and full-time job. And, you just scale down on the classes that you think you can handle. My guess would be that most people are taking only 1 at a time, the people that are full-time. Of course, there are always people that are more ambitious. They just want to get through the program. But I thought that would be my case when I first started. I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a lot of classes and get through this program. But then I fell in love with the program within the first quarter, and I thought, wait, what's my rush with trying to graduate fast? Because when I graduate, this is over. All the resources, the community, well, it's not going to be over, but I think you get the gist of, I have access to all these great things right now. Why would I want that to be over as soon as possible? Actually, now I'm thinking of stretching it and just taking it, 1 class at a time, just trying to stay in ComLead for as long as possible. So that's my experience.
That's a great strategy. So the next question is kind of related, and I was doing the math in my head too while Sarah was speaking. Is basically like an average of the number of hours you spend on like class and coursework combined. So I think that depends. So we have 2, 3, and 5 credit classes in the program. So depending on which class you've taken and total how many credits. So international students have to take 10 credits per quarter anyway, but for others, it depends on how many credits you want to take. Like Sarah decided to scale back to just 5 a quarter. So I think at least for the 5 credit class, anywhere between 10 to 15 hours, I think is the number of hours you put in every week, including the class time. The class time is around 4 hours if the class is weekly. And if it's like, if the class is on weeknight evenings, then it's a 4-hour class. And if it's on weekends, then it depends. So it depends from class to class. But on an average, I'd say 10 to 15 hours for a 5 credit class is probably the time we put in. And just to add to what Sarah said, I think we have like all kinds of combinations in the program of people who do the program full-time, don't work, people who do the program full-time and work part-time like me, people who do the program full-time and work full-time. We have had examples of those in the program. And the other way, where people who take the program part-time and work full-time. So it depends on what you want to do and how you want to customize or get through the program. The next question is there a limit to partner programs? I'm guessing you mean partner programs that you can apply for since they're short term. And what has been the outlook for shifting to full-time or extended contracts with them in the past? So every quarter, based on what I know, every quarter you're able to apply for multiple positions in the partner programs because there's lots that are available. But if you get selected, you would get selected for just one. And you do that one for the entire quarter. So partner programs work on a quarterly basis. So there's a bunch that comes out at the beginning of each quarter, and then people get hired to work on those for the quarter. But there are also cases where those get extended beyond the quarter too. Like someone I know in the program in my cohort, she started her partner program last fall. It got extended over winter, and now it's probably also going to be extended over the spring quarter as well. So depending on what the work looks like for the partner, there's possibility of the extension as well.
I can add on the previous question for the average hours that I'd spend in the coursework. So one thing that came on top of my head is like for my last quarter with ComLead, I took a class called Communicating with Data. I just checked, it was a DM track class, but for this, the 2020 or 2021 quarter, it became track neutral. I'm not sure, but you guys can double check on that. So with that class, because we used the tool that we are learning to use for data visualization was Tableau. And then that's something that I'm not familiar with. So I think that for that course, I set up meetings with librarian to help Tableau, and also have group meetings several times a week just to figure out like how to collect data or whether the data story that we're trying to tell. So I spent a lot of time working on that class, definitely more than 10 or 15 hours, but like it's something that I'm really interested and passionate about to learn more. So I guess it really depends on the class. And then if you love doing it, you're gonna spend a lot of time on it. We have another question.
The next question is, would this be a good program if I'm interested in working in publishing? Personally, I guess that depends on what aspect or what kind of roles and what kind of work you want to do. Because like I said earlier, depending on the courses you take in the program, that basically influences what you are able to, what you're equipped to do after you graduate. It's basically kind of being able to customize the program to what you want to do later. For example, in my case, I took classes that would contribute to building the skills I want. So I took content strategy classes. I've taken 2 product content strategy classes. I've taken a research class because I wanted to kind of get into the user research aspect as well. I did user research psychology classes. So I basically picked classes that would help me get into the field or the career I want to. So in your case, I guess, depending on what aspect of publishing you want to get into, you could look at the courses that are available and see if those are in line with what the skills you want to develop for that role.
I can add a little bit to that. So initially I was also interested in working in publishing, and my first quarter, I took this class called short form professional writing. And I feel like that would be one class that might be interesting if you're interested in publishing. And I'm sure that there are a lot more in the program as well.
Yeah, I can jump in just to say that at its core, CommLead, it is a communication strategy degree. So it's not, while it's not designed to train someone for that specific career of publishing or editing, you might find that more in like a creative writing or English, program for that specifically. That said, we've had students shape the degree in ways that we never would have predicted. So we've had surgeons, we've had MDs come through and do the MCCN because they wanted to improve their communication and relational skills with their patients and explaining difficult diagnoses and things like that. And we didn't design the program to do that, but they were able to make it work for them with the classes they chose. We've also had people work in, say, public schools with education technology after going through the program. And as Kiati said, it's a matter of looking at what skills you already have, what you're already bringing to the table, and what classes we offer that might supplement those skills. And if the combination of those two is going to prepare you for, what you see in job descriptions of the positions you want to have, then looking at it from that perspective. So there isn't one specific job title or that we do or don't prepare students for. It's a matter of seeing which skills are you wanting to build and which classes are going to help you do that. I could take the next question asking about, is applying for the program competitive? So it all depends on how many applications we get each year. So it's one of those things that can be difficult to predict until that application deadline passes. We do have a cohort each year that we're looking for about 90 students in an incoming cohort between both the MCDM and the MCCN. So given how many people apply, that determines, how we get to that 90. If it's most years, I'd say we tend to have about a 40% or so, give or take a lot, depending on how many applications we get, admission rate to the program. So while it is moderately competitive, it's certainly not a cutthroat, admissions process. I also work for our MA PhD program, which has about a 5% admission rate. So 95% of applicants get denied to that program, whereas CommLead, it's more like about 50 to 60%, just based on the numbers. This year, we have multiple deadlines, so that gives you more opportunities to be considered for the program. Now, you can only apply once for autumn 2021, so you can't apply February 1st and then get denied and apply again March 31st. It doesn't work like that, but we're looking at different pools of applicants throughout this spring to build that final cohort. So we'll know for sure once that process is all complete, but I'd say on average, about 40% admission rate.
Awesome. Is there any other question anyone might have?
I can take Victoria's question here. So I was just going to remind people about those deadlines. We do only admit for autumn quarter. So while we have multiple rounds of admissions, they're all just for one cohort. So starting in autumn, so in September for the year. Now, there is another way that students can take classes if they want to test out the program. It's called graduate non-matriculated status, which just is a long term for a non-degree seeking student. And you can apply for GNM or graduate non-matriculated status for any quarter. So that's a way for people to try out the program without applying to the degree. GNM status lets you take up to 10 credits total on a space available basis from electives. And so that is an option each quarter. The deadline's 1 month before the quarter begins. If you're interested in, maybe you're not looking to apply for autumn 2021, you're thinking maybe autumn 2022, but you want to try out a class or two in the meantime. So there's that option every quarter. But for the degree itself, it is just autumn quarter entry.
Hi, sorry, I think I'm still a little bit confused in terms of the multiple deadlines, because if I'm applying, because my plan is autumn 2022, just because of certain things. And so if there are multiple deadlines, the February 1st, the March, yes, the March date as well. I'm assuming there's also one in the summer before autumn. I was just trying to figure out what you meant by if you apply for an autumn entrance but got denied, you can't apply at the next deadline.
Got it. Yeah. So basically, there's 3 deadlines that we have each year. So for autumn 2021, our February 1st priority deadline has passed, and our next one will be March 31st, and then we have a final deadline only if there's still space in the cohort of June 1st is the last deadline for autumn 2021. And basically, the majority of the spots in the cohort are taken with the priority deadline applicants. So say 80% or so of spaces will be given out in that group. And then the March 31st, there's limited spaces left. There's also a lot less applicants for that. So it doesn't necessarily make it more competitive. If 30 people apply and we have 10 spaces left, then that's actually not a terrible situation to be in there. So each of those rounds are all to build the autumn 2021 cohort. So if you're looking to apply for autumn 2022, we recommend waiting to start an application until at least October 1st for that year's recruitment cycle, because there are changes made to the graduate school's application during the summer for that next year's cycle. We might also make updates to the prompts or what we're asking for in the application over the summer. So the recruitment season really begins October 1st. So that is the earliest you would want to start an application for autumn 2022 would be October 1st, 2021. Is that a little more clear? If it's not, just tell me.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so if I were to apply in October and for, God forbid, unfortunate reasons, don't get in, I'd have to wait until the next cycle of 2023.
Yes, that's correct. So you can only apply once for that fall's entering cohort.
For the next question, I think there isn't, I mean, if I am wrong, Heather, please correct me, but I think there isn't like a typical composition of any sorts. I can give you the example of my cohort, and then maybe Sarah can talk about what cohort 20 looks like. But there isn't, I don't think there is a pattern in terms of the composition of each cohort, in terms of how many people take it full-time and part-time and international and domestic and stuff. So in my cohort, I think there's around 40% international students, 40 to 45% international students. So that would mean all international students also take the program full time. So there's at least that many full-time students in the cohort as well. And from the non-international students, I think about 20% might be part-time and the rest are full-time. I don't know what cohort 20 looks like, and if Heather has a better answer.
I know that on the website, there's like a chart, right? An infographic that kind of tells you the breakdown.
I just put that in there. So we have our program overview page has demographics, and those are based on the current students in autumn 2020. So we update that once a year. So those on there, they talk about gender, ethnicity, years since the bachelor's degree, which degree they're in. So you can see that kind of breakdown. In terms of full-time, part-time, it's been pretty consistent over the past couple of years that about half, maybe 55% to 45%, it varies a little bit in there, but about half are full-time and half are part-time. So it is, there's an equal number of students really pursuing the program in each way. And as Kiati said, some of those full-time students are not working at all. Some are working part-time, some are working full-time, and then same for the part-time students. We have some part-time students that aren't working at all, some that are working part-time and some that are working full-time. So, but it's about half and half in terms of full-time and part-time students.
I think we have time for like one last quick question. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time here. So if anyone does have a final question, feel free to go ahead and ask that. All right, looks like we're good. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And if you do think of any more questions even after, oh, okay, we have one quick one. Can you quickly touch on what you can get out of this program over the storytelling certificate course?
So UW Continuum College has several non-credit certificate programs, and one of them is storytelling and content strategy that our faculty help develop. That is, first, one of the things you get is graduate school credit because the certificate is a non-credit program. So that can't be applied towards like a graduate school if you're wanting to transfer credits or anything like that. And basically that certificate would be the equivalent of about one CommLead class in content in terms of what you're learning in that. So I would say think of that as an example of what you might learn in a single class, and then you're going to learn in much different, a lot of different areas and a lot more variety when you complete the full master's degree. That's my quick answer.
Thank you. Like I was saying, if you have any more questions or if you think of anything even after the session, you can feel free to go back to the YouTube channel or the CommLead website to see any of the previous recordings. Or like Heather said, send in your questions to the CommLead email ID and she definitely gets back very, very quickly. So you will have your answer. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Leah, Isabel, and Heather. And also Sarah, she had to rush to class at 6. But thank you everyone for being here and for your time. See you.
Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye.